Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this is the sewing part of the previous tutorial I posted. So this is the dress. You can see what's looking like. It's looking so good. You can see the gather details on the neck. So please go and watch the part 1 before you watch this so you can understand better. So guys, please don't forget to like, give me a thumbs up. If you're here to subscribe, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much. So let's get into it. So first off, I'm just showing you guys my piecings. You can see the bottom part of the dress. That's the second bottom part for the front and the back. Guys, remember the front has a seam. So I have about 1 inch on my front for my seam because it has a zipper. So I'm just showing you that. Half an inch at the top, 1 inch on the side, and 1 inch at the hem. The back also has a seam at the center back, just so the back can lay flat. There's no zip at the back. So I have 1 inch on the center back. I have half an inch at the top. I have 1 inch on the side and 1 inch at the hem. So guys, for this, I'm using a cotton fabric. For this dress, I actually used about 3.5 yards. So if you're of my size, you can use 3.5 yards, 3.5 to 4 yards, I think. But if you're a bit on the big side, you can use 4 yards. So I'm just showing my piece for the back. I have half an inch at the hem, at the bottom of the waist. I have 1 inch on the center back because remember there's a seam at the back, and then my allowances all around. So I'm showing you the front. I'm showing you the facing for the front. For the front part, so that's what I'm showing you. Remember I showed you how to cut it on the previous tutorial video, so that's just what I'm showing you. So I'm just showing you my belt piece. For the belt, it's just a straight strip of I have about 30 inches long, and it's 6 inches wide. So 30 inches long and 6 inches wide. So when you're finished getting that, at the hem, just measure 5 inches high, and then just make an angled cut from that 5-inch point. So that's what I'm just trying to explain there. So I have 2 pieces for this belt because I don't want, if you have enough fabric, you can make 4 pieces so you can double and then turn in. But I'm just going to be sewing the sides because I did not have enough fabric for that. So next up, I'm showing you my pockets. I have 4 pieces for that. And that's all my pieces. So I'm going to be starting with the front. I'm going to make gather stitches on the front from where I used to where my fingers stop. So I'm going to do all the way to the end. I'll do run gather stitches on that. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like. So I'm done running gather stitches. I already pulled one side off camera. I'm sorry. So I'm just going to show you guys how I did the other one. So just pull. Before you pull, please make sure you check. Remember, we took our measurements from the shoulder to where the front zipper is going to start. So when you're pulling, make sure you pull the zipper parts. When you pull, make sure you pull it back to the exact measurement of the where the front zipper is going to start. So I think mine was around 2.5 inches. So I'm pulling that, making sure that the gather from that end is exactly 2.5 inches. Then I'm doing the same thing to the top. I think from my top shoulder to the end was about 12 or thereabout. I don't remember right now, but I'm pulling that to the exact measurement. But if you cannot do this, if you can't remember what yours is, if you still have your pattern, please just check on there and just measure. So when you're done pulling that, another thing you can do is you can also check that the gathers you've pulled are accurate when you use your facing. So that's the purpose reason why we cut the facing before we started opening up the pieces for the gathers and front. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm checking with my facing, my front facing. So if it aligns accurately, both allowance and all, then I know I'm on the right track. So you can see me checking, and my fabric is still longer than my facing. So I'm going to pull in so that it becomes accurate. If yours is less, you release some of the gather. If it's more, you pull inside. So just use your button placket to keep you on the right track. So now I'm done confirming that it's accurate. I'm going to keep that aside, and I'm going to be joining my back piece. So first of all, I'm going to trace out my dart and then draw it out. Then I'm going to remove my back facing. You can see stay attached to my back. So I'm going to remove that and keep that aside. So I'm just keeping the front and the back facing aside because I don't need them for now. So after tracing my dart, I'm going to sew that and I'll come back and show you guys. So now I'm done tracing that out. You can see what it's looking like. I'm done sewing that rather. So I'm going to keep that aside. I'm going to bring the bottom part of my back. So as per usual, if you follow me, you should be used to this part. I'm going to mark where my hip line is. I'm going to mark where my waist. These are just guides for me when I'm joining the pieces together, so I know where each is. So I'll make a small cut at the waist, make a small cut at the hip. I'll do that on both sides. Wherever I have a seam, I always do that. It makes it very easy when I'm assembling. So you can see me doing it on the other side as well. So the next thing I'm doing is making the markings from where my pocket will start. So I have exactly 2.5 inches from the waist. 2.5 inches from the waist is what I'm marking. Not from the top of the pattern, from the waist, directly from the waist. So from your waistline, you just mark 2.5 inches down. Then I'll just take out all my pins and then it's time to attach this to the back. So after doing that, I'm going to bring my back. You see what I'm doing? Making sure the left is for the left, the right is for the right. I'm going to assemble the right sides together facing each other and I'm going to join them at the waist with the allowance that I have. So I'm just pinning them down. After pinning, I'm going to sew it and come back and show you guys. So I'm also going to be closing the center seam. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to join the waist. After joining the waist, I'm going to put them side by side together and I'm going to sew the allowance that I have on the center. So I'm going to align that, making sure the waist is touching the waist seam, the waistline is touching the waistline, the hip is touching the hip, and I'm going to join that together and I'll come back and show you guys. So remember, join the waist first, then place the two side by side and close up the sides, center seam. So this was looking like after closing up all the seams. So you can see what it's looking like. The center line is aligned and everything is aligned. So next thing I'm going to be doing is fixing the pockets. Guys, please, if you don't know how I fixed pockets, I've made a lot of outfits on this channel that I've done pockets on. So you can just watch one. But if you want a detailed video of how to cut your pocket, please let me know in the comment section. So I'm going to be keeping 2 pieces of the pocket aside for the front and I'm only going to be using 2 for the back. So I'm going to be bringing my pockets right sides facing each other. Do you remember that notch we made at the waist? So I'm going to be starting the edge of the pocket from that line. So I'm going to place the pocket there and just pin that, secure that with a pin. So now I'm done doing that. I'm going to mark the allowance that I have on the side of my outfit, which is 3.25 inches, which is what I'm using for, 1 inch, which is what I'm using for mine. So I'm going to mark in that exact 1 inch on the pocket. And I'm going to sew on that line. I'm also going to do the same thing. Guys, I'm just showing that I'm using a blue chalk because it will wash out. That's the benefit of using a tailor chalk. When you're washing this outfit, it will all come out. But I needed to use a colored chalk so I can be able to see the markings I'm making because this is a white fabric. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm done doing the same thing on the other side. So guys, this is how you sew. You sew on that line and then you flip it over and make a stitch on top to keep your pocket in place. So I'm going to do that and then I'll come back and show you guys what it's looking like. So I'm done doing that and I've stitched my pocket down. So this is what it should look like. So next thing, I'm going over to the front. Same thing like I did at the back. I'm going to make notches at the waist on both sides and also notches at the hip line. Then same thing again like the back. I'm making the lines or the notches for the pocket. So after making all those notches, I'm going to remove the paper and then I'm going to join the front, the top part of the front to the bottom part of the front. So I'm just arranging this side by side. So next thing I'm going to be doing is arranging the front, right sides facing each other. Do you see? The part of the front that has the curve, not the shoulder part, the waist part. So I'm going to arrange that and I'm going to pin that down. So you know, as per our usual styles, when we have to do something like this, we usually have 2 pieces that will sandwich. For this, it's just 1 piece. So just pin it accordingly. So after pinning both sides, you're just going to sew the allowance you have out. So I'll do that. I'll come back and show you guys. So now I'm done joining that. This is what yours should be looking like. So I also attached my pocket in the background just like I did to the back, exactly the same way. There's no difference. So after doing that, to have a neat job, you see that seam we just joined and the back seam as well. If you have an overlocker, you can overlock that. If not, you can use a bias strip or just a strip you cut from the fabric to secure that, especially if you have a fabric that sheds. That's what I'm just showing you. I'm going to be doing mine behind camera. That's why I'm just trying to explain this. So just like I did in the back, just like we did in the back, I'm going to flip this over each other, on top of each other rather, making sure that the under bust seam is aligning, making sure that the waist is aligning, making sure that the hips are aligning. Just pin them all down. So at this point, I'm confirming again that my button area is exactly the same height like the pattern. So confirm this again if you're not sure, just in case maybe your gathers may have moved, and then just continue pinning. So remember that this dress has a slit at the front, so that's what I'm just marking. So whatever area you're comfortable with, if you want it higher enough, lower enough, that's completely optional. So I'm just marking where my slit will end, so I know that when I'm joining together. So I'm just marking out my allowance that I will sew on, and I'm joining all those lines together. So when I'm sewing, it's easy for me. Guys, this is what I do. That's why my I get my accurate allowances each time. I always mark it out on the fabric and I sew along that line. So even if you've been sewing for years or you're a new beginner, this helps. So I'm going to start from that point. You see that point, that is where my zip starts. So if you cut your pattern the way I explained it, that's how yours should be looking. So I'm also going to measure my allowance there, and I'm also going to roll that out. Guys, the same allowance I explained to you on the facing for the front, that's the exact same allowance you add to the original block. 1 inch at where the neckline ends, and then 1/2 inch on the neckline. Remember that, guys. So that's what I've done. I'm just going to sew that down and I'll come back and show you guys. So guys, when I'm sewing, I'll make a loose stitch. So first off, I measured like 4 inches upward from the hip line. I'm just going to mark that down. Then I'm going to be sewing a loose stitch from the top of my neckline to that 4 inches line before the hip line, and then from that line to the all the way to this where the slit ends, I'm going to be sewing a tight stitch. The reason for that loose stitch is because I'm going to be putting a zipper in that part so I can take it out later. So now I'm joining that. Please guys, make sure that your 2 under bust seams meet exactly at the same point. This is what it's looking like. You can see my slits at the hem. Can you see? So if you want yours higher, if you want yours lower, that's completely optional. So next thing I'm going to be putting is a zipper at the front. So I'm just showing you guys that. So I'm going to go and install my zipper, and I'll come back and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So guys, please, there are so many videos on YouTube on how to install an invisible zipper. So you can just watch one. There's really no special way to do it. So now I'm done installing my zipper. I'm just showing you what it's looking like. So this is what it looks like. Do you see? So just do yours like that. You can see zip all the way to the top. So I'm just showing you. So next thing I'm going to be doing is joining my front and the back at the shoulder seam. So I'm just placing the back on top of each other, and I'll pin the shoulders down. So after pinning the shoulders down, I'm just showing you I've pinned that all down. I'm going to go and join that, and then I'll come back and I'll show you guys. So while I'm joining the shoulder, I decided to also join the facings of the front and the back at the shoulder too. So this is me just assembling the front and the back. Right sides facing you. Right sides facing you. And then I'm going to be, remember my back pattern has a seam at the back. So that's why it's coming out 2 pieces. I also have 1 inch allowance at the center of that back. So I'm going to attach it first of all to the shoulder, just like the way I'm pinning down. Remember, right side is facing you. So right sides on top of each other. And then I'm going to do what I'm doing. I'm closing up that 1 inch allowance I have at the center back. So I'm going to sew that down. And I'm also going to join on the shoulders. You see, so I'm going to sew that down, join on the shoulders, and then I'll come back and show you guys. So now I'm done joining the shoulders. This is what it's looking like. I'm just opening it up flat, the right side facing me. I'm going to bring my facing that I just joined. Do you see what it's looking like? And I'm going to use this to turn the neck inside. So what I'm doing is attaching the back seam, the back center back seam to the center back seam, the shoulder seam to the shoulder seam, right sides facing each other. I'm going to be covering up the gathered neckline with the part intended for the neck. I'll pin that down all the way to the front. So I'm done pinning. This is what it's looking like. You can see it. So I'm done pinning. Remember, your allowance should also be covering your zipper. Remember that. So I'm going to sew along that allowance, and I'll come back and show you guys. So I'm done sewing that. You can see my zipper is concealed on the inside. Guys, please remember to only cut your zipper after you have covered it up, or you end up ruining the zipper. You have to start from beginning. So this is what it's looking like. This is what it's looking like on the inside. So guys, I made a top stitch after sewing just to hold it in place. This is what I did. I moved everything to the side with the facing, and I sewed on top of it. So that's what a top stitch is. So I'm just showing you what it looks like at the front. Everything's looking neat. By the time I press that down, everything's going to be laying flat. So I'm going to keep that aside and go into my belt. So for my belt piece, this is all I will just do. So all I'll just do is fold the rough edges double time, as tiny as possible, because all I have is 1/2 inch allowance all around. You see what I did? I got to the curved part. I also folded it and just went round. So I'll do that and show you guys. So this is the belt. You see, this is what I did. This is what I was explaining. This is what I've sewn, folded it to, and I just sewed it down. Please remember, this is going to be exposed. So make sure your sewing is as neat as possible. So now I'm going to sew the belt onto the dress, onto the front part of the dress, the front part. So guys, I changed the placement of the belt, but I'm just going to explain it here so you understand. So please just look at this. Is how I placed it actually, making sure that the wrong side, that's the side with the folded sides, the wrong side is facing the fabric and the right side is facing you. The right side should be facing you. The wrong side should be facing the fabric, because when you tie the belt, you want the wrong side facing the fabric and not you. So the wrong side facing the fabric, the right side facing you. Now this is the part I'm saying is different. Do you see I'm pinning it under the underbust seam? No. Make sure that half of it is on top of the underbust seam and then the under half under. That's when you get the most fitting. So I already made the error of sewing mine like this, and then when I wore it, I realized it didn't have any fitting at that point, so I had to redo that. So that's why I'm explaining it now. So after pinning it down, I'm going to use my back to cover up that. I'm going to pin my underbust seams at the same point. I'm going to pin my waist at the waist, pin the hip at the hip, pin the pockets. So this is what I'm just doing. I'm just pinning them, making sure that every seam and every notch is aligning with each other. I'll pin that all down. So I'm aligning the pockets just like this, making sure the pockets are laid flat and directly on top of each other. I'm just going to pin that down as well. So I've pinned that down. I'm going to do the exact. I'm going to continue to pin all the way to the end, and I'll also pin the other side the exact same way. So guys, while pinning, please remember not to take away the pin that is holding down your belt. If that's going to be a problem, you can sew that down with maybe a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 of an inch stitch just to keep it in place before you come and pin your back on top of it, if it's going to be a problem. But for me, I just left my pins in there. When I was sewing, when I got to that point, I removed it. So I'm just marking up my allowance on the fabric. Like I said, I do this on every outfit that I make. I always mark out the lines. It makes it easy for me and accurate. So this is what you do. You just mark. So when you get to the pockets, you're going to measure 1/2 inch from where your pocket starts, just 1/2 inch. From that point where your pocket is joined to the fabric, 1/2 inch. So you're going to connect your line up to that 1/2 inch point, and at that 1/2 inch point, you go into the pocket. Do you see what I'm doing? Into the pocket. So you just draw out your 1/2 inch allowance you have on the pocket all the way around. So I'm just doing it round. Then 1/2 inch again from where the pocket starts at the end, 1/2 inch on top. That's what I'm marking again. And I'm going to sew on top of that 1/2 inch line. Just like that. So the lines I'm making are the lines you sew on top. So I'm just marking up my side allowance again. Continue from that 1/2 inch point on top of the end of the pocket. And then I'll just continue all the way to the down. So I'll do this for the other side. And I'm going to sew all these lines. I'll come back and show you guys. So guys, I'm done joining that. Remember that thing I said about I did to the pocket? So this was where I was making the correction. So this is what I was doing. I had to lose that back, take out the pocket again, and re-put it on the inside. So this is what I was trying to explain in that part when I said I made sure that 1/2 of it was lying above the underbust seam, and then the other 1/2 was under. So this was looking like after joining everything. So the pocket exactly like that, the way my hand movement went, that's how I sewed it. In fact, exactly the way we marked it. So now I've just flipped it over. I'm showing you guys. I've turned it inside out rather, and I'm showing you guys how it's looking. You see, our dress already coming together, guys. This dress is gorgeous. I decided in my head I was going to make it in colors. I kept the pattern aside. I'm like, no, no, no. I need this in colors because it was looking really good. So this is me trying to explain why I said the wrong side of the fabric should be of the belt should be facing the right side of your dress, then the right side facing you at the top. So that when you tie it, the wrong side will be facing your fabric and the right side will be facing outside. So that's what I was trying to explain here. Remember, you're fixing your belt. You're fixing it with the right side of the fabric facing you. So that's it. So I'm just tying it up to show you guys what the belt will look like after. The next thing I'm going to be doing is finishing up the slits. I'm just going to fold that into two, half and then another half, because I have 1 inch allowance on that center seam. And I'm going to sew that all the way to the end. When I get to I'm going to use the half and another half on top of each other, and I'll sew that down. When I get to the hem, I'm going to do the exact same thing, half and half on top of each other, and I'll sew that all the way around. And that's going to finish up my hem and my slits. So now it's time to attach the sleeves. So guys, for my sleeve, the regular balloon sleeve, I'm going to be uploading a video of exactly how to cut your sleeve and how to get to this point. So this is me just at this point. Please watch that detailed video to understand if you don't know how to cut a balloon sleeve. So I'm just going to be attaching my sleeve to my dress. So before I take out my pattern paper, I always mark where the front of the sleeve is. So I line the front to the front of the dress and then the back to the back of the dress. So I've folded it in. I've made a notch at the center of the sleeve, and I'm going to add this to the main dress. So guys, I'm not going to be explaining the sleeve part because I have a lot of dresses or outfits on this channel that I've attached sleeves to the main outfit before. There's nothing different. It's exactly the same way. So I'm not going to be explaining that. So I'm just going to join my sleeves. I'll also iron down the entire dress, and that will be pretty much it. So let me just join the sleeve and show you guys. And this is what everything is looking like. So I'm done attaching the sleeve, and before that I wanted to show you guys something. Do you see the facing at the back is just hanging out? You're going to attach it to your back allowance. You're going to just sew that down with a straight stitch. The same thing to your shoulder seam. Take the shoulder facing, hold it to the seam at the shoulder, and just make a sewing there. The same thing to the other side. Hold that together and just sew. Make sure it's not touching the main fabric, just on the allowance. This is going to make your facing lay flat and it won't disturb you. So you can see I've ironed mine. You can see how flat it's looking. Everything is looking okay. You can see my pockets. The dress is pretty much ready. Guys, this dress is ready and it was looking so good. That's my belt. That's everything. So I'm just trimming out any loose threads and the dress is ready, guys. So please guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys on the next one.